Imagine waking up in a pitch-black, starry void surrounded by hundreds of screaming, disoriented strangers. That is exactly what happens to our protagonist, Lee Ki-young, who has no idea how he ended up in this chaotic dimension. As the crowd panics and screams to be let out, purple runes begin glowing on the floor. Suddenly, a massive, muscular horned monster with glowing eyes manifests before them, causing pure terror. Everyone is in denial, desperately claiming it has to be a fake prank, while Ki-young tries to piece together his memories. He remembers just being in his house, eating noodles a moment ago, when his phone buzzed with a mysterious game invitation asking if he wanted to participate. He clicked yes, and that was the last thing he remembered before waking up in this nightmare. Back in the chaotic void, a blonde man tries to calm the crowd, while Ki-young confirms that this physical interaction is neither a dream nor a hallucination. Suddenly, a beautiful, glowing goddess with long white hair and a golden crown appears, welcoming them to the other world. She thanks them for accepting the invitation, and claims they are chosen heroes destined to save a dying continent. However, there is a major catch. They cannot just enter the continent. First, they must survive a brutal tutorial in this starting zone, and only a select few. Survivors will actually make it out alive. She provides basic survival gear, weapons, and food, explaining that they are now in a reality governed by game-like systems. Ki-young realizes he has been dragged into a world that only exists in games and novels. Suddenly, a loud shattering sound echoes, as the protective glass barrier around them begins to break, inducing panic. The goddess tells them to say status window to check their abilities. Ki-young opens his screen to find he is a 25-year-old classless careful strategist with incredibly mediocre stats, like strength 10 and stamina 11. But then, a system notification alerts him that he has unlocked a unique heroic rank trait, called Mind's Eye, allowing him to inspect the hidden talents and status windows of anyone. Eagerly checking his own overall rating, Ki-young is devastated to find the system completely trashing him, stating his talents are the absolute worst, and no matter how hard he tries, he is destined to remain a third-rate loser. Refusing to accept his pathetic fate, Ki-young braces himself as the barrier fully shatters and demonic, red-eyed monsters invade the area to slaughter them. As the goddess cold-bloodedly wishes them luck, utter panic erupts. Amidst the screaming crowd, a burly, reddish-brown-haired man named Park Dyaku steps up, shouting at everyone to grab weapons and realize this is not a joke. Using his mind's eye, Ki-young inspects Dyaku's stats and is shocked to see he has a massive heroic endurance stat of 30. Standing amidst the blood and chaos, Ki-young flashes a confident, wicked smirk, realizing he has just found the perfect meat shield to ensure his own survival. The chaos continues as grotesque. Screaming beasts breach the barrier, cornering terrified survivors. Amidst the blood and panic, Lee Ki-young steps up with a weapon, boldly declaring to a shocked Park Dyaku that they need to fight back. But it is all a calculated lie. The moment a monster lunges, Ki-young completely cowards out, screaming for Dyaku to block it while he runs away. Dyaku is left bewildered, shouting in frustration, while Ki-young quietly smirks, thrilled that his plan to use Dyaku as a personal meat shield is working perfectly. Dyaku holds the line, punching a monster with explosive force, and asks if Ki-young is safe. Playing the grateful companion, Ki-young coordinates with him to collect items and fight their way through the horde. Together, they spot a glowing magical portal and realize the exit is right in front of them. Just as they prepare to escape, they hear a desperate cry for help. A terrified young man is pinned to the ground by bizarre, rabbit-like monsters with glowing eyes. Dyaku pleads with Ki-young to save him. Ki-young charges in with his spear, but his heroic rescue is purely self-serving, designed to manipulate Dyaku's trust. Fighting through the remaining beasts, they manage to retreat to a temporarily safe, dimly lit stone room. Dyaku is utterly exhausted and anxious about what to do next. To calm him down and build his loyalty, Ki-young explains the bizarre reality they are in, comparing it to a video game. He details how they must defeat monsters to level up, gain stats, and unlock powerful classes. Since they managed to secure weapons, shields, and rations, Ki-young assures Dyaku they are already in a much better position than the other survivors. While resting, they notice a low-ranking monster called a voracious demon wandering nearby. Strangely, it does not attack. Ki-young activates his mind's eye and discovers the creature has incredibly poor eyesight and intelligence. Realizing it is functionally blind, Ki-young confidently tells Dyaku they can kill it. Gripping his staff, Ki-young brutally strikes the beast, killing it and instantly gaining a strength stat point. Seeing the tangible proof that killing monsters grants power, Ki-young uses the opportunity to psychologically groom Dyaku. He gaslights the big man, telling him that if someone as weak as him can do it, Dyaku can do even better with his incredible 30 endurance points. Deeply moved, Dyaku asks for his name. Ki-young introduces himself, secretly planning to drain his new follower to the absolute bone. while Diaku proudly introduces himself as Park Diaku, eagerly asking to call him Hyungnim. Kyung agrees. To further strengthen his human shield, Kyung hands Diaku a gear upgrade that boosts his endurance by 1, cementing Diaku's blind loyalty. With Diaku now completely devoted, they advance down a dark stone corridor. Suddenly, they hear a blood-curdling scream. A terrified schoolgirl named Young Hyan is cornered by a massive, roaring monster. Seeing the sheer number of beasts, Kyung's immediate instinct is to yell at Diaku to run. However, before fleeing, Kyung decides to cast his mind's eye on the crying girl. The resulting status window leaves him completely frozen in shock. Despite her weak appearance, Young Hyan possesses a legendary rank magic power stat of 10. As Diaku screams at him to run, Kyung stands transfixed, whispering her name as he realizes he has just stumbled upon a literal jackpot. Realizing that the crying schoolgirl Young Hyan is a literal jackpot, Kyung instantly changes his tune and shouts at Diaku to go save her. He crouches behind a barrier, yelling for Hyan to run toward them, and she nods in absolute terror. As she flees, Diaku bravely charges in to intercept a monstrous, orc-like beast, blocking its heavy strikes with his shield. Seizing an opening, Kyung lunges forward with his weapon, striking the beast while shouting for it to die. But before they can celebrate, Diaku warns that a massive horde of monsters is closing in on their position. Just as they are about to be overwhelmed, a dazzling streak of blue and white energy cuts through the dark, and a mysterious swordsman executes a powerful slash that instantly decimates the oncoming beasts, leaving Kyung in absolute shock. A quiet, serious young man with dark blue hair and a long coat steps forward. Intrigued, Kyung activates his mind's eye, and the resulting status screen leaves him completely dumbfounded. The stranger is 22-year-old Kim Hyun-sung, carrying the mind-blowing title Regressor of Altanis. Kyung quickly realizes this is not Hyun-sung's first time in this world. He has traveled back in time. Looking deeper, Kyung sees Hyun-sung's stats are legendary and heroic, completely dwarfing his own to the point that the system rating calls any comparison an insult to Hyun-sung. To make matters worse, Hyun-sung possesses a legendary rank trait called Swordsmanship Expert. Overcome with bitter jealousy, Kyung quickly masks his envy and approaches Hyun-sung with a warm, friendly smile, thanking him for the rescue and introducing himself. Hyun-sung reveals his plan to gather survivors and establish a camp, prompting Kyung to secretly mock him as a naive pushover, knowing that gathering weaklings will only become a burden. However, Kyung keeps these thoughts to himself, realizing that keeping a perfect relationship with a regressor who knows how to conquer this world is an absolute necessity. Meanwhile, a traumatized Young Hyan is still curled up nearby. Seizing another chance to play the hero, Kyung extends a gentle hand to her, offering comfort. Hyan blushes and thanks him, holding onto his arm in gratitude. Suddenly, Hyun-sung approaches and eagerly introduces himself to Hyan with a bright, blushing smile. Kyung immediately notices Hyun-sung's unusually happy and protective reaction to the girl. Putting the pieces together, Kyung has a massive realization. Hyun-sung is a powerful warrior who has seen the world's end, and in this second regression, he was actively looking for Hyan because of her. Tremendous latent magic potential. Kyung smirks internally as he looks at the two of them. He has just found a legendary future magician and a time-traveling veteran warrior. Resolved to leech off their incredible luck and power, Kyung happily plays along, comforting Hyan while maintaining a friendly front with Hyun-sung. Holding his valuable new allies close, Kyung can barely contain his joy as he vows to stay by their sides until the very end, ready to suck them dry down to their bones. Led by Kim Hyun-sung, the group of survivors travels along a dirt path, with Kyung noting that Hyun-sung seems to navigate the terrain with prior knowledge. Their journey is interrupted by a woman named Lee Ji-hai, who runs up to Hyun-sung with over-the-top, flirtatious affection. Kyung instantly activates his mind's eye on her, and his system screen reveals her name, Lee Ji-hae, 29 years old, with completely garbage stats, and a disposition labeled selfish ambitionist. Despite being 7 years older than the 22-year-old Hyun-sung, she shamelessly flirts with him. Kyung instantly recognizes her as a fellow manipulator who is putting on a fake, cute act to secure her own survival. During introductions, Ji-hae crosses her arms, subtly measuring the newcomer's worth. She gives the muscular and armed Diaku a passing grade. While looking over Kyung, who pretends to be a helpful companion, Ji-hae claps her hands with a sweet, fake smile and guides them to the gender-separated living quarters, even winking and asking Kyung to take good care of her. Kyung returns the warm smile, but internally, his sinister side takes over. He realizes they are cut from the exact same cloth, two parasites playing a game of deception. Upon reaching the shelter, they find a crowd of injured, crying non-combatants, who rejoice, believing their saviors have finally arrived. Kyung looks around in disgust, realizing that while this shelter is safe for the weak, it is a death trap of useless baggage that will only drain their limited supplies. The next morning, Kyung wakes up and begins his move to manipulate the regressor. He points out the harsh reality to Hyunsung. They have 30 helpless mouths to feed. Supplies are running incredibly low, and more monsters lie ahead. Kyung bluntly labels the weak survivors as useless baggage, which triggers Hyunsung's heroic nature to defend them. When Dyaku overhears and panics, asking if they are abandoning the camp, Kyung clarifies that he has no plans to leave, but questions the logic of sacrificing themselves for people who offer nothing in return. Despite Kyung's logical arguments, a stubborn Hyunsung sighs, determined to save everyone anyway. Seeing Hyunsung's unwavering heroism, Kyung adapts his strategy. He puts on a sympathetic act, telling Hyunsung that while he understands and respects his noble desire to save everyone, he personally lacks the selflessness to sacrifice his own life for strangers. This reverse psychology works perfectly, causing Hyunsung to let his guard down and express understanding for Kyung's honesty. In the shadows, Kyung flashes a wicked, predatory smirk. Walking under the starry sky, Kyung suggests they speak freely about the future. Looking at his beloved regressor, Kyung proposes that they coordinate their plans, smiling as he resolves to ride Hyunsung's coattails, refusing to let the time traveler hoard all the rewards of this world for himself. Walking under the night sky, Kyung pitches his alliance to Hyunsung, proposing that he and Dyaku be included in his future plans. To his surprise, Hyunsung smiles and casually acknowledges the offer, realizing Kyung saw through him. Kyung argues that merely trying to survive without a plan is impossible, as the weak non-combatants will eventually starve to death even if monsters do not eat them. Hyunsung accepts this hard truth and shakes hands with Kyung, formalizing their partnership. Kyung notices a shift in the way Hyunsung looks at him. Because of his sharp insights, Hyunsung now respects Kyung, viewing him as a highly talented analyst or administrator type. A quick montage of their hunts shows just how valuable this alliance is. As Dyaku holds off monsters with his shield and screams for his Hyungnim, Hyunsung swoops in like a storm, executing flawless sword strikes that decimate the beasts. Kyung is deeply satisfied, knowing that his mind's eye did not lie about Hyunsung's terrifying strength. While clearing out more of the starting point, the team manages to secure food supplies. However, the talk of Hyunsung's martial prowess reminds Kyung of a frustrating detail. He is still classless. Seeing his anxiety, Hyunsung reassures him that his class will unlock soon, praising Kyung's invaluable help. Almost on cue, Kyung's body is enveloped in a brilliant golden light. As his class screen finally unlocks, Kyung eagerly opens the golden interface to find 4 options: Warrior, Archer, Mage, and a rare tier class called Commander. He quickly runs through the pros and cons of each. Warrior is too dangerous for a frontline coward like him, and Archer seems like the perfect, safe choice for lazy, long-distance sniping. Mage is also highly tempting because it would boost his embarrassingly low mana by 3 points. However, the crown jewel is the Commander class, a rare option that grants tactical leadership buffs. He discusses his options with the group, revealing that he unlocked the rare Commander class. While Hyunsung looks surprised, Dyaku immediately bursts with excitement, claiming that Kyung is a natural-born leader. Kyung is skeptical, knowing he is actually a trickster who uses deception rather than genuine battle tactics. A hilarious, heated debate erupts within the group. Hyunsung suggests that Archer is the most efficient choice because they desperately need ranged combat support, while Dyaku furiously screams that Kyung must become a commander. The chibi-style shouting match between Archer and Commander escalates, leaving a sweat-dropping Kyung completely overwhelmed. Deciding on what is truly most efficient, Kyung reaches out and clicks yes on his final choice. As a massive burst of golden energy erupts around him, Dyaku and the others crash into him, screaming to know which class he ultimately selected. Cornered by a highly demanding Dyaku and Hyunsung, Kyung finally reveals his choice. He did not choose Archer or Commander, but instead became a magician. While Dyaku slumps over in utter disappointment and Hyunsung questions his logic, Kyung plays it off as pure intuition. Internally, however, Kyung knows exactly what he is doing. Archer was immediately eliminated because he is not athletic, and the rare tier Commander class only offered a pitiful stat boost. Choosing Magician, however, dramatically increases his already high intelligence and grants him 3 points in mana, which was previously empty territory. Instantly, a flood of new magical knowledge fills his brain. Though his snarky status window still insults him and tells him not to expect much growth, Kyung confidently smiles, knowing this magic will be immediately useful. Turning to Dyaku, Kyung asks if he has chosen a class. Dyaku admits he is torn between priest and shieldsman, but before he can even finish his sentence, Kyung and the others firmly yell for him to choose shieldsman. Dyaku complies, officially unlocking the shieldsman class and proudly brandishing a massive spiked wooden shield. Kyung smirks in triumph, celebrating the official completion of his personal meat shield. Before heading back to camp, Hyunsung asks how they should divide the food supplies they gathered. To Hyunsung's absolute shock, Kyung hands over a massive sack of rations, claiming that 2 sacks are more than enough for him and Dyaku, and telling Hyunsung to use the rest to feed the struggling survivors. Deeply moved by this fake display of charity, a teary-eyed Hyunsung bows in profound gratitude, completely falling for Kyung's saintly act. Back at the survivor camp, the true social hierarchy is on full display under the leadership of Lee Ji-hae. Kyung observes Ji-hae's cruel nature, realizing she is the classic type who is weak to the strong but brutally dominant over the weak. While Hyunsung is away, Ji-hae acts like a king, mocking a starving man by tossing him leftover crumbs, while scolding a weeping young Hyeon for being sluggish, and threatening to starve her if she does not work. When the warriors finally return, the camp erupts in tears of joy. Some survivors offer to carry the luggage, but Kyung holds onto his sack. When Dyaku questions why they are not sharing their food with the rest of the lazy crowd, Kyung bluntly reminds him that they are not a charity. He advises Dyaku that if the survivors want to eat, they need to pick up swords and fight, guessing that Hyunsung brought them here to motivate them rather than feed them for free. Seeing the cruel treatment Hyeon is receiving, Kyung realizes this is the ultimate opportunity. He knows that people are most grateful when they are helped at their absolute lowest point, making them incredibly easy to control. Kyung calls Dyaku over, hands him a bag of food, and instructs him to give it to Hyeon and look after her. Dyaku completely misinterprets this as a romantic gesture, smugly agreeing to act as a wingman, while Kyung wonders what on earth is wrong with him. Dyaku delivers the food to a weeping Hyeon, comforting her and building her trust on Kyung's behalf. However, their special treatment of Hyeon does not go unnoticed. A shirtless man with glasses spots the exchange, his friendly smile instantly twisting into a furious glare as he demandingly asks who the hell Kyung is, setting the stage for a dangerous new rivalry within the camp. Inside the dark camp, the creepy glasses-wearing Yu Seokwoo is absolutely furious that anyone else would approach young Hyeon, whom he possessively considers his precious treasure. Watching from the shadows, Kyung instantly sees through Seokwoo's obsessive behavior, muttering that it is painfully obvious why a guy like Seokwoo would share his scarce food. Rather than intervening directly, Kyung gives Dyaku a firm nod and tells him to make his move. Meanwhile, Seokwoo plays the saint, comforting a distressed Hyeon with a piece of bread and claiming he just wants to look after her. Hyeon, completely naive to his dark intentions, gratefully accepts, even blushing as she wonders what her other savior, Kyung, is doing right now. When Seokwoo shyly asks to get closer, Hyeon happily nods, assuming he just wants to be close friends. Taking her friendliness as an invitation, Seokwoo's mask completely slips. He aggressively grabs her hand, and when a terrified Hyeon trembles and begs him to let go, Seokwoo's friendly demeanor turns predatory. He holds her chin, threateningly asking if she honestly thought he was doing charity work, demanding she repay the favor. Before Seokwoo can do anything worse, Dyaku steps in like an absolute powerhouse, threatening to crush his hand if he does not let go. Dyaku chokes the gasping scumbag, calling him a wimp, and delivers a devastating punch that sends Seokwoo crashing to the ground. The violent explosion of dust and noise alerts the entire survivor camp, with everyone rushing over in absolute shock, while a panicked Hyeon screams in terror, caught in the chaotic crossfire. As the camp whispers in confusion, Kyung calmly bites into his bread roll in the background, enjoying the show. Dyaku tells the weeping Seokwoo to stop crying like a baby since he barely hit him. Just then, a furious Lee Ji-hae rushes in, demanding to know what Dyaku just did. Seokwoo immediately tries to play the victim, sweatily claiming he only wanted to be close to Hyeon and that it was all a terrible misunderstanding. Ji-hae demands that Hyeon step forward and speak up. Instead of sympathy, the surrounding crowd begins whispering coldly, mocking Hyeon as a drama queen playing a victim in distress. Feeling completely isolated and realizing that this cruel new world is no different from Earth, Hyeon breaks down in tears. Mustering up her courage, Hyeon tearfully tells the truth, confirming that Seokwoo did indeed force himself on her, before desperately clinging to Kyung for protection. Annoyed by the drama, Ji-hae harshly scolds Hyeon for thinking that crying solves everything, while also lecturing Dyaku for acting too rashly without understanding the situation. However, Ji-hae uses this scandal to assert her own authority. Turning to a sweating, terrified Seokwoo, Ji-hae flashes a smug, sinister smile, and demands that he get on his knees and beg for forgiveness. As Seokwoo humbles himself on the ground and Hyeon weeps, heavy footsteps echo through the dirt. The crowd parts as the regressor, Kim Hyunsung, finally returns, demanding to know what on earth is going on. As Kim Hyunsung returns and demands to know what is going on, Kyung decides to seize the absolute perfect opportunity. He does not care about the drama between Seokwoo and Hyeon, but he realizes that with Hyeon cornered, he can play the ultimate hero. Stepping forward, Kyung completely cuts off Ji-hae, loudly scolding her for treating the camp like a neighborhood playground, and risking attracting nearby monsters with her loud voice. The camp instantly goes silent in terror. Targeting Ji-hae's weak logic, Kyung points out that they still do not know who the victim is, asking if Ji-hae is willing to take full responsibility if her accusations against Hyeon turn out to be false. Panicked that Hyun-sung might kick them out of the camp for ganging up on an innocent person, the crowd's support immediately begins to shift away from Ji-hae. Pushing his fake savior narrative even further, Kyung argues that Hyeon is innocent, when Ji-hae desperately asks how he could possibly know Haeun so well after only a few days. Kyung delivers a masterclass in logical gaslighting. He asks Ji-hae if telling a school friend you want to get along means you want to sleep with them, loudly proclaiming that physical contact has nothing to do with being close. The crowd eagerly nods in agreement, leaving a humiliated Ji-hae screaming in absolute shock, as her authority is completely dismantled. Kyung smirks in the shadows, knowing he has officially usurped her position. In his mind, a golden crown is placed on his head. He is now the true king of the camp. He calmly orders the survivors to carry Seokwoo away for treatment, and the crowd eagerly obeys, treating Kyung like their new leader. Kyung calls Hyeon over for a private talk, gently inviting her to sit down and share her story comfortably. Overwhelmed by his warmth, Hyeon tearfully stammers out her side of the encounter, explaining how Seokwoo grabbed her hand and threatened her. Kyung does not actually care about her rambling, focusing entirely on showering her with fake empathy. He tells her it must have been so hard and acts like he believes in her completely, which makes Hyeon blush and cry with intense gratitude. To solidify their bond, Kyung fabricates a total lie, claiming she reminds him of his beloved younger sister back home. In reality, his sister is a violent brat who only kicked him and demanded money. But Kyung knows that playing the protective, relatable older brother is the fastest way to raise Hyeon's affection. Finding out that Hyeon is also an orphan, who lost contact with her sisters, Kyung acts shocked and claims they share deep similarities. A blushing, flustered Hyeon is completely smitten, agreeing to drop honorifics and talk to him more comfortably. In the shadows, Kyung smirks and opens his mind's eye to check her stats. Hyeon has a pure advocate disposition, and her potential is absolute monster tier, possessing epic intelligence and legendary mana. The system screen bluntly warns Kyung that Hyeon will end up on a completely different level than him once she unlocks a mage class, which only motivates Kyung to quickly guide her down the path of magic. Just as he plans his next move to suggest magic to her, a shadow falls over them. Someone approaches their table, asking Kyung for a private moment, interrupting his perfect manipulation. Sitting alone at night, Kyung is surprised when Lee Ji-hae approaches him to apologize, claiming she acted too sensitively during the conflict. To Kyung's amusement, this 29-year-old woman tries to flatter him by calling him Oppa. Sensing her political maneuvering, Kyung leans in and delivers a cold, ruthless warning. He bluntly points out that neither of them has talent or status, meaning their only path to survival is playing dirty camp politics. Warning her not to cross him, Kyung claims they are both power-hungry snakes. But just as the tension peaks, Kyung completely changes his tone, placing a hand on her shoulder with a charming smirk, telling Ji-hae he loves ambitious women and that she is exactly his type. Laying out his terms, Kyung commands her to back off from young Haeun, stating that he will take full control of the legendary future magician. Recognizing they are identical parasites, Ji-hae happily leans against his shoulder, and the two share a dark, politically motivated kiss, cementing their alliance as corrupt soulmates. A few days later, Ji-hae orchestrates a public trial. Seokwoo is forced onto a wooden stage, weeping and begging the entire camp for forgiveness. Kyung reflects on Ji-hae's terrifyingly effective political execution, thrilled that he chose to ally with her. With Ji-hae controlling the camp's atmosphere, Kyung has spent the last few days pretending to be a supportive brother to Hyeon, listening to her whine while using the excuse of magic tutoring to draw her closer. Kyung teaches Hyeon how to cast basic spells, summoning a small flame on his fingertip, while explaining that magic relies entirely on mental imagery. Haeun watches in awe, treating him like an absolute god. Kyung is highly satisfied, having also spent his free time training hard with Dyaku to master their respective shieldsman and mage classes. As they wrap up their training session before their upcoming hunt with Hyun-sung, Hyeon shyly approaches him, mentioning that her mana has suddenly spiked again. Delighted by his treasure's rapid growth, Kyung decides to cast his mind's eye on her, fully expecting to see that she is on the verge of unlocking her magic class. What Kyung sees next leaves him completely frozen in sheer disbelief. The system screen reveals that young Hyeon is not just close to unlocking her class, she is already a mage. Her screen displays a perfect, heroic understanding of magic foundations, an insanely boosted mana stat, and dramatically maximized growth potential. As Kyung stares in shock, Hyan blushes, innocently stammering that she still has no idea how to use mana. Looking at her sweet, blushing face, Kyung realizes with chilling clarity that she is outright lying to him. His mind races as he stares at her with intense, calculating eyes, desperately wondering since when, exactly, his seemingly naive little treasure has been playing him. Confronted by Kyung, who asks if she has been lying to him, Hyan acts completely shocked and flustered. Knowing her monstrous talent, Kyung is fully aware she is faking her struggles with mana. To keep up her innocent act, Hyan suggests they try channeling mana together. Kyung holds her index finger to guide her, but she intentionally fakes a failure, tearfully whining that she still cannot do it. Kyung is deeply annoyed by her blatant acting and shuts down the session, despite her desperate pleas to practice more. As she leaves, Kyung is approached by Park Ha-young, a calculating non-combatant who serves as Lee Ji-hae's lackey. Ha-young asks Kyung to include her in the upcoming hunting party, pointing out that she would be a far more useful addition than the weak and sluggish Hyan. Casting his mind's eye, Kyung sees that Ha-young possesses impressive combat stats, including heroic strength and rare constitution, making her a highly capable assistant. He agrees to recommend her to Hyunsung, but tells her not to get her hopes too high. Meanwhile, Ji-hae calls the camp together with a megaphone, and Hyunsung takes the stage to announce the roster for the next hunt. Walking alone, Hyan thinks of Kyung with a blushing smile, happily reassuring herself that he is the only person she can truly rely on in this hellish place. Suddenly, Ha-young corners Hyan on a forest path and smugly confronts her. She cruelly tells Hyan that she is delusional for thinking Kyung actually cares about her, claiming she only got into the party out of pure luck. Ha-young drops some harsh, cynical truths, explaining that tactical manipulators like Kyung do not actually trust anyone, easily tire of weak crybabies, and throw people away without mercy once they lose their utility. She mocks Hyan, telling her that everyone who has ever been nice to her eventually abandoned her. Prodding Hyan's nose, Ha-young proudly claims she is a much better fit for Kyung than an idiot, before walking away with a smug laugh. Alone in the woods, Hyan desperately clings to her memories of Kyung's warmth, recalling how he patted her head, embraced her, and called her family. But as the horrible lies eat away at her insecure mind, Hyan's fragile psyche completely snaps. Her thoughts warp into a terrifying, Yander-like madness as she imagines Kyung throwing her away, and Ha-young taking her place. Consumed by a psychotic possessiveness, Hyan's eyes glow a menacing red as her mind completely fractures. Terrified of being abandoned, she mentally screams for Ha-young to get her hands off her oppa, sealing her transformation into a deeply dangerous, Yander-tier monster who will stop at nothing to keep her savior all to herself. Picking up right where we left off, young Hyan's fragile mind has completely broken under the fear of abandonment, transforming her into a ticking time bomb. But just minutes earlier, back at the camp, a meeting is called on the wooden platform to address the growing food and water shortages. To give the hopeless survivors a spark of motivation, Lee Ji-hae asks Kyung to step up and show them what he can do. With a calm demeanor, Kyung extends his hand and summons a burst of raw flame, absolutely shocking the crowd. He uses this display of magic to reveal the reality of their situation, explaining that this isn't Earth and that they now possess game-like stats, abilities, and classes. Painting himself as a relatable beginner who was once terrified, Kyung delivers an inspiring speech, declaring that if they fight their fears, they will gain the strength to survive. The crowd is fired up by Kyung's words, cheering, and practically begging to join the fight. Seizing the momentum, the leadership group decides to take 2 new members on an experimental hunt to help them level up. They choose Young Haein and her toxic bully, Park Ha-young. Ha-young steps up to join them, trying to play the innocent victim, and eagerly telling Kyung she is in his care. But as soon as she takes his hand, Kyung pulls her close and whispers a chilling warning right into her ear. He looks at her with a terrifyingly cold glare, telling her that if she ever messes with Haein again, things will get incredibly ugly for her. Ha-young is left shivering in pure terror, stammering out a desperate agreement, while Kyung quickly flashes a fake, warm smile to the crowd to keep up appearances. But the tension only rises when people realize young Haein is missing from the crowd. When Haein finally approaches, the atmosphere suddenly turns, bone-chillingly cold. A heavy, suffocating pressure washes over the platform, leaving everyone sweating in confusion and whispering in fear. Even Kyung breaks out in a cold sweat, feeling an ominous presence, though Dyaku just assumes he is exhausted. From overworking, behind closed doors, Ha-young is. Spiraling into a total panic, realizing Kyung completely saw through her manipulative games, terrified of being cast out, and knowing she is already on Kyung's bad side, she concludes that Ki-young is a dangerous mastermind who completely runs the show. She realizes her only hope of survival is to desperately crawl back into his good graces, vowing to do whatever it takes to gain his favor. The next day, the expedition group officially departs. Kim Hyun-sung and Deoku lead the vanguard, while Ki-young, Hyeon, and Hae-young are tasked with supporting from the rear. As they march, Ki-young looks back at Hyeon, deeply unsettled by the terrifying, mad aura she radiated the day before. He tries to convince himself that it was just his imagination, and that he is simply overthinking things. After all, Hyeon is currently looking at him with blushing cheeks, innocent sparkles, and pure adoration, appearing as harmless as ever. Choosing to brush off his anxiety, Ki-young decides to just keep a close eye on her for now. The team moves forward into the dark forest, completely unaware of the nightmare waiting to unfold. In a final, chilling narration, Ki-young admits that back then, he truly had no idea what horrifying reality he was walking right into. The moment the expedition enters the dark forest, the nightmare officially begins as they are instantly ambushed by a swarm of grotesque, snarling monsters. The battle is pure chaos, with Hyun-sung cutting through the beasts with dynamic, blood-splattering sword strikes, while the rest of the party struggles to hold the line. Hae-young is completely paralyzed with fear, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she grips her weapon. Amidst the frenzy, a giant, skull-armored monster launches a heavy assault, forcing Deoku to block with his massive shield. Straining under the immense pressure, Deoku screams in pain that he cannot hold on much longer, desperately urging the others to finish the beast off before his defense crumbles. Urged to act, a panicked Hae-young tries to force herself to stab the monster to prove her worth to Ki-young, but she is utterly frozen by disgust and terror. Seeing her hesitation, Ki-young steps in with a chilling, calculated intensity. He grabs her hands, forcing her to grip the blade, and together they drive the sword deep into the monster's chest. Even as the creature screams in agony and blood splatters across them, Ki-young refuses to let her loosen her grip, forcing her to hold the weapon inside the dying beast, while whispering for her to just think of it as meat. Hae-young tears up in absolute horror, realizing just how truly psychotic and merciless Ki-young is behind his polite mask. Once the beast is finally dead, Hae-young collapses to the cold stone floor, panting and completely broken. Standing over her, Ki-young delivers a cold, bone-chilling warning, telling her that this is the first and last time he will ever help her, and next time, she will have to survive entirely on her own. He then instantly switches back to a warm, cheerful smile, wishing her good work before walking away. Hae-young is left shivering in the dirt, realizing she has absolutely no leverage and that she could easily be the next one discarded. Later that night, the exhausted party rests around a campfire in a stone cave. While the others sleep, Ki-young lies awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind wanders to the mysterious continent they are heading towards, and he wonders about the tragic, war-torn past that forced Kim Hyun-sung to regress in the first place. Waking up groggy in the middle of the night, Ki-young opens his eyes and spots a shadow moving in the dim room. Through his blurry vision, he sees young Hyeon standing directly over him. Her eyes glow a terrifying, predatory red, and she wears a chilling, warped smile. Ki-young desperately tries to convince himself that he is just sleepy and seeing things, but the reality is far more horrifying. Leaning down in the quiet dark, Hyeon gently caresses his head, whispering how cute her lovely oppa is when he sleeps. Completely consumed by her obsessive yander madness, she giggles to herself in the shadows, vowing that she will never, ever let anyone take him away from her, sealing Ki-young's fate with a monster far more dangerous than any beast in the forest. Waking up the next morning, Ki-young is absolutely exhausted, letting out a massive sigh. When Hyun-sung asks if he is all right, Ki-young plays it cool, but internally, he is losing his mind. He cannot shake the terrifying memory of Hyeon hovering over him like a possessive demon, whispering that he belongs to her. Ki-young realizes that Hyeon's terrifying yander state has been triggered by intense jealousy towards Hae-young. He deeply regrets making things so complicated instead of keeping it simple, and he nervously wonders if his carefully laid plans are starting to spiral out of control. Meanwhile, Hae-young is seething with rage, secretly plotting her revenge. Looking at Ki-young, she furiously promises herself that she will make him pay for looking down on her, completely unwilling to be used as his pawn. The group pushes deeper into the stone corridor, searching for monsters to farm. As they explore, they discover a hidden stone staircase leading down into a dark basement, which Ki-young realizes is a tutorial dungeon. Knowing it is too dangerous to dive in blindly, they agree to pull back and return on the next expedition. But just as they prepare to leave, 3 muscular, horned orcs emerge from the shadows, blocking their path. Deoku eagerly charges forward, throwing his shield with a loud battle cry. The beasts fight back viciously, forcing Deoku to brace for impact while screaming about his shield not being made of vibranium. Instantly, Ki-young calls upon his fire magic to unleash a blazing wave of flames, while Hyun-sung moves like a lightning bolt, cutting down the beasts with glowing blue energy slashes. As they clear out the monsters, Hyunsung yells that they are on the last one, but suddenly notices something is wrong. Hayoung has completely vanished from the group. When Kyung asks Hyeon where she went, Hyeon nervously stammers that Hayoung was right beside her just a moment ago. Before they can search, a massive monster roars in the dark, launching a surprise attack. Hyunsung reacts instantly, slicing through the beast, and checking to see if everyone is okay. Right then, Hayoung stumbles out of the shadows, breathing heavily and acting completely distressed. She tearfully claims that she fell behind and tried to help by throwing her spear, but missed. Underneath her pathetic act, she hides a malicious, gloating smirk. Kyung's blood runs cold as he realizes the horrifying truth. Hayoung's clumsy act was a deliberate trap, and her loud, calculated screams have alerted every single monster in the dungeon. As the sound of echoing footsteps grows louder, Kyung internally curses her as a crazy bitch, realizing they are about to be completely swarmed. He urgently screams for the group to retreat immediately. Standing in the back, Hayoung watches the chaos unfold with a smug sneer, happily thinking that if Kyung dies here, he was never worth that much to begin with. With the monsters closing in, Kyung desperately screams for Haein to unleash her devastating magic. Looking back with glowing red eyes, Haein whispers a cold agreement, ready to unleash absolute hell to protect her beloved Appa. As the party frantically runs through the dimly lit stone corridors, a massive, fiery demon-like monster leaps from the shadows, completely blocking their path. Realizing they are in a bottleneck, Hyunsung bravely yells that he will act as bait, instructing the other four to take a detour and run back to the shelter. In the chaos of the retreat, Hayoung maliciously flips them off, before purposely tripping herself, to leave the group behind, hoping to draw the monsters toward Kyung. Seeing them fall behind, Kyung desperately screams for both Haein and Haeyoung to hurry up. To buy them time, Kyung coordinates with Deoku and unleashes a massive, explosive fireball, completely obliterating a group of swarming monsters. Deoku cheers in excitement at his hybrid leader's incredible power, but when the smoke finally clears, Kyung's heart sinks as he looks around. Kyung and Deoku realize they are completely alone in the corridor. Deoku panics, frantically asking where the girls went, leaving Kyung in a state of sheer disbelief. How could both Haein and Hayoung disappear at the exact same time? Without Deoku or Hyunsung noticing, after meeting back up with Hyunsung, Kyung begins to put the pieces together. Scanning the ground, he notices a faint, glowing trail of purple and pink magical residue. A cold sweat breaks out across his face as a horrifying thought crosses his mind, and he desperately prays that his worst fears aren't true. Splitting up with Deoku to cover more ground, Kyung follows the eerie magical trail, deep into the isolated stone ruins, dreading what he is about to find. Deep in the ruins, under a glowing purple magical barrier, Hayoung is collapsed on the floor, shaking in absolute terror as young Haein looms over her. With a cold, vacant smile, Haein points out that Hayoung's leg is perfectly fine, revealing she knows Hayoung tripped on purpose to get Kyung killed. Before Hayoung can even beg, Haein casually whispers Windblade, unleashing a razor-sharp magical slash that brutally mutilates Hayoung's legs. As Hayoung screams in excruciating pain, Haein uses her magic to gag her, blocking all sound from escaping the room. Smiling like a pure psychopath, Haein taunts her whimpering victim, explaining that this physical pain is nothing compared to the agony she felt when Hayoung tried to steal her beloved Oppa away from her. Haein prepares to cast one final, lethal, Windblade to end Hayoung's life, once and for all. But just before the magic strikes, Kyung bursts into the room, screaming Haein's name in sheer panic. The moment Haein hears his voice, her terrifying, murderous aura completely vanishes, instantly replaced by a sweet, innocent smile. She runs over and happily hugs him, gasping in relief that her Oppa is safe. Holding her in his arms, Kyung looks over her shoulder and freezes in absolute horror. Hayoung lies in a pool of blood, completely mangled, while Haein stands there with blood splattered all over her face and clothes, looking up at him with pure, unhinged adoration. In that chilling moment, Kyung realizes he didn't just save a useful mage, he unlocked a blood-soaked, unstoppable monster. Staring at Hayoung's mutilated body, Kyung is absolutely terrified, realizing he is standing right next to a literal monster. His mind races, wondering if he should run away or pretend he knows nothing, but he quickly forces himself to stay calm. He stands over the trembling, blood-splattered Haein and asks her what happened to Hayoung's arms and legs. He is testing her, giving her a simple choice to see if she will confess or lie. Haein bursts into hysterical tears, crying that she got separated from everyone and only just woke up to find Hayoung in this horrific state. Kyung plays along perfectly, comforting her and asking if she is hurt. As they embrace in the dark, Hyen flashes a smug, creepy smirk, thinking she completely fooled him. But Kyung pulls her closer and whispers that she did a good job, shocking her with his total validation. Kyung looks back at Hayoung's corpse, realizing they have a massive problem. The cuts on her limbs are far too clean, and if the powerful regressor Kim Hyun-sung sees them, he will immediately realize they were made by human wind magic. To cover their tracks, Kyung invents a lie that Hayoung must have triggered a magical trap. He then casts Flame Wall, completely burning Hayoung's body to ash to destroy any evidence of Hyen's crime. He plays the role of a merciful savior, telling Hyen that even though it is dangerous, they couldn't just leave her behind, and had to do at least this much for her. Hyen is deeply moved, blushing and trembling in admiration, while Kyung grimly realizes that Haein isn't the only monster here. He is exactly the same. Suddenly, Deokgu rushes into the stone room, frantically screaming to make sure they are safe. To sell his cover story, Kyung fakes complete physical exhaustion, gasping that he used up all his mana to cremate their fallen ally. Haein watches him in tears, fully believing that her selfless Oppa pushed himself to the absolute limit out of pure kindness. The group sets up a temporary camp to recover, and Deokgu, feeling guilty for almost losing them, leaves to patrol the nearby area. Alone by the campfire, Kyung opens his status window, and is shocked to see his luck has increased by 2 points. He then uses his mind's eye on Haein, only to find her system rating has warped into something incredibly bizarre and obsessive. I'm your #1 fan. Kyung talks to Hyen by the fire, admitting that he feels guilty, and that thinking about the terrifying event still sends shivers down his spine. But then, he pulls her into a tight, affectionate embrace under the warm glow of the fire, whispering how truly glad he is that she didn't get hurt. Hyen weeps with pure, ecstatic joy, laughing hysterically as she clings to him. As he holds her, Kyung's chilling internal thoughts lay out his ultimate resolve. He vows that he will do absolutely anything to survive in this hellish world. He decides to play the long game, promising himself to hold on to Haein and use her to the very end, even if she completely loses her humanity along the way. Kyung continues to hold Hyen in his arms, thinking that while a platonic relationship is nice, wrapping her around his finger by dragging her into a deeper relationship is a much faster way to secure her loyalty. But before he can make his move, Deokgu suddenly interrupts them, startling both of them. Hyen jumps up, blushing furiously and screaming that it is not what it looks like, while Deokgu smiles smugly, assuming they are just playing coy. Deokgu proudly reveals that he has been secretly encouraging Hyen and trying to push them together the entire time, calling himself the infamous Gang Won Do Love Doctor. Kyung is internally screaming with rage, calling Deokgu a fucking pig and wishing he could strangle him, but he forces a maniacal laugh to hide his anger while Deokgu assumes he is just embarrassed. The next morning, Deokgu is sleeping soundly on the floor, and Kyung kicks him to wake him up. When Kyung tries to get Hyen up, her terrifying yander eyes flash red as she coldly warns him that she wants to sleep more. Kyung freezes, sweating in pure terror as he realizes he is staring at another death flag, knowing he cannot avoid her if he wants to survive. Kyung swallows his fear, gently touches her head, and softly tells her it is time to get up. Haein instantly melts into her cute, submissive act, blushing and agreeing, though Kyung remains utterly terrified of her creepy shift in personality as they prepare to head back to the shelter. Back at the camp, Lee Ji-hai is relaxing with a mug, wondering why the expedition is taking so long. When the group finally returns, Ji-hai runs over to welcome them, but Kyung casually drops the bombshell that Hayoung is dead and Hun-sung will return shortly. Ji-hai pulls Kyung aside to speak alone, which instantly triggers Hyen's murderous jealousy. Kyung pats Hyen's head, whispering for her to wait inside and warning her that she absolutely cannot kill Lee Ji-hai. Once they are alone, Ji-hai immediately sees through Kyung's fake sorrow, guessing that Hayoung must have tried something and got dropped like an object. Kyung claims they barely survived a monster attack, and Ji-hai sighs, deciding not to pry further since she can already guess the bloody truth. But Ji-hai has her own shocking news, revealing that the camp's entrances are completely blocked because Yu Seokwoo has taken action. Kyung panics, cursing his bad luck and wondering why his worst premonitions are always right. He watches in disbelief as Seokwoo approaches with a smug smile, but his eyes quickly lock onto the terrifying figure walking right behind him. A scarred, dark-haired man with a sinister grin and glowing red eyes stares back at him. Using his mind's eye, Kyung's blood runs cold as he realizes this calculating killer is young Jinho, and his presence means the camp's fragile peace is about to be violently shattered. Kyung stares at the creepy, scarred man behind Yu Seokwoo, getting absolute goosebumps from his ominous presence. He quickly asks Ji-hai how many survivors are left, and she grimly replies that only 7 remain, as the other 6 died, going out recklessly. She warns Kyung that the newcomers who helped Seokwoo return are definitely not normal. Trusting his instincts, Kyung immediately activates his mind's eye on the scarred leader. The golden status screen pops up, revealing a terrifying truth. His name is Young Jinho, and his tendency is a calculative murderer. Kyung is completely horrified, realizing he is standing face to face with a literal psychopath who possesses the rare magic swordsman class. Knowing they are in extreme danger, Kyung quietly whispers to Jihei to go fetch Deokgu and Hyeon immediately. But before they can prepare, Jinho steps forward with a warm, friendly smile, introducing himself and extending a hand. Kyung is deeply unnerved by how normal and polite the murderer seems, but he plays along, shaking his hand and introducing himself. Jinho reveals that Seokwu told him all about Kyung's impressive fire magic, leaving Seokwu sweating in panic nearby. Kyung is secretly furious at Seokwu for blabbing his abilities to a psychopath. As the other newcomers greet him, Kyung's luck stat and survival instincts scream at him to get as far away from Jinho as possible. Suddenly, Deokgu and Hyeon run over to check on Kyung, but they instantly freeze as they sense Jinho's menacing aura. Kyung steps in to shield them, coldly telling Jinho that he is scaring his people. Jinho merely smirks, expressing disappointment that he isn't being welcomed more warmly. To test him, Kyung casually mentions hearing rumors about humans hunting other humans instead of monsters in the area. Jinho's smile turns incredibly sinister, as his red eyes gleam, creepily asking if Kyung has ever met anyone like that. Kyung lies and says he hasn't, but the air instantly turns suffocatingly tense, as both sides prepare for a deadly standoff, with Haein silently gathering her magic to protect Kyung. Just as the tension reaches a breaking point, Kim Hyun-sung suddenly arrives on the scene. Kyung sighs in massive relief, thanking God that his powerful regressor ally showed up before things turned bloody. Disappointed that the fight was interrupted, Jinho clicks his tongue, but quickly masks it, bidding Kyung a friendly farewell. Hyun-sung asks Kyung who these newcomers are, but the moment Jinho walks up and introduces himself, Hyun-sung's reaction is absolutely shocking. Hyun-sung's blue eyes glow with a monstrous, suffocating fury as he desperately suppresses his rage. Looking at the two, Kyung realizes Jinho has no idea who Hyun-sung is, leading to a chilling realization. Young Jinho was Kim Hyun-sung's mortal enemy in his previous life. As Hyun-sung intensely suppresses his rage, Jinho continues to shake his hand, completely unaware of the monstrous fury boiling beneath the surface. Hyun-sung quickly forces his anger down, apologizing and politely introducing himself, while Jinho continues to play the friendly newcomer. Watching this intense interaction, Kyung's mind pieces everything together. From his analysis of Jinho's calculative murderer status, he draws a chilling conclusion. Jinho was a massive villain in Hyun-sung's previous life, likely responsible for killing Hyun-sung's friends or even Hyun-sung himself. Jinho then asks if his group can stay at the camp, even offering some of their food as payment. To Deokgu and Kyung's surprise, Hyun-sung accepts them immediately, claiming they always welcome survivors, though his hidden motive is clear. Keep your enemies close to monitor their every move. As the newcomers settle in, a man named Lee Gishiol introduces himself to Kyung. Shaking his hand, Kyung gets a strange sense of dread, wondering why Gishiol's name sounds so familiar from what he knows of the first timeline. Kyung quietly instructs Deokgu and Jihei to guide the new guests, pulling Deokgu aside and warning him to keep a close eye on them and call him immediately if anything goes wrong. Walking through the camp, Jinho catches up with Kyung and creepily smirks, claiming they have a lot in common because they are both highly calculating individuals. Kyung shudders, fully realizing Jinho is a dangerous psychopath, but he playfully winks to hide his terror and deflect any suspicion, hoping to buy time to figure out a plan. Later, Kyung pulls Hyun-sung aside for a private chat. He drops a massive bombshell, solemnly revealing that Park Ha-young is dead. Hyun-sung is instantly shocked, demanding to know how it happened. Kyung begins his masterfully fabricated lie, explaining that after they got separated in the dungeon, he found Ha-young with her limbs completely severed. He suggests she was taken down by an unidentifiable, powerful magic, likely a trap hidden in the ruins. Hyun-sung is deeply suspicious, knowing that a trap like that shouldn't exist in the early stages of the tutorial. Sensing Hyun-sung's doubt, Kyung knows he has to play his cards perfectly to protect Hyeon, so he pivots to his ultimate psychological trick. Kyung covers his face, faking a brilliant display of immense trauma, tears, and guilt. He explains that in his panic and grief, he couldn't bear to leave her body for the monsters, so he made the split-second decision to burn her corpse to ash. Hyeon instantly bursts into tears, clinging to him and begging her Appa not to cry, fully buying into his tragic act. But in his mind, Kyung is laughing maniacally. The arrival of Jung Jinho, a literal magic swordsman and known murderer, is the absolute perfect cover. Now, any clean-cut magic murders in the camp can be easily blamed on Jinho's dangerous crew. With a twisted, sinister smile hidden in his thoughts, Kyung points the finger at his new rival, thanking Jinho for unknowingly becoming the perfect scapegoat. Kyung sits alone at a wooden table, calmly sipping his drink and tapping his thighs. He reflects on his masterful strategy since dropping the news of Ha-young's death to Hun-sung. He has deliberately avoided outright accusing Jinho, knowing that the one who needs to connect the dots and realize Jinho is the killer is Hun-sung, not him. Kyung can just act completely clueless while Hyun-sung silently monitors Jinho and the rest of the camp. To push his plan to the next phase, Kyung meets with Hyun-sung and subtly suggests they attempt to raid the underground stairs dungeon again, proposing they bring the newcomers along. He uses Hyen's recent awakening as a magician to justify the trip, leaving Hyun-sung silent and deeply contemplative. Hyun-sung is completely caught in Kyung's mental web, already believing that Ha-young was murdered by Jinho's dangerous crew. Looking to protect the camp and eliminate the future threat, Hyun-sung agrees to the raid, but requests they split into two separate parties to maintain their distance. Kyung is absolutely thrilled, internally cheering that Hyun-sung has taken the bait and stepped onto the deadly stage he meticulously prepared. Meanwhile, Jinho is busy playing the role of a perfect, selfless saint around the camp, carrying heavy crates, handing out rations, and earning the adoration of the clueless survivors. Watching Jinho enthusiastically engage in physical labor, Kyung scoffingly calls him a crazy bastard who is pretending to be normal while plotting to steal everyone's lives. Kyung meets up with Hyen, who happily reveals she has developed a powerful new wind spell using air as a medium. He proudly pats her head, prompting a shy, blushing response from his completely devoted mage. Deokgu interrupts with his usual goofy behavior, once again pushing Kyung to lock down a relationship with Hyen, which Kyung quickly brushes off. They discuss the upcoming joint raid with Jinho's group, with Deokgu admitting he has a terrible gut feeling about the newcomers. Kyung agrees, advising them to prioritize the dungeon but keep a safe distance from Jinho's party. He warns Hyen to completely ignore the annoying Yu Seokwu, and she happily agrees, promising to only focus on her beloved Appa. Later, Kyung knocks on Hyun-sung's door, greeting his teammates as they gather inside. Deokgu starts teasing Kyung, joking that he looks like a secretive grandmother hiding savings in a money pouch. Smiling softly, Kyung reveals he has something highly valuable to give the party. He reaches into his cloak and pulls out an incredibly rare, glowing magical item, completely blinding the room in a radiant golden light. The entire group is left staring in utter shock and amazement at the sheer value of the treasure. Looking at the glowing item, Deokgu blushes in pure, starstruck awe, internally screaming that he knew he could always trust his genius leader to carry the team. Standing in front of the group, Kyung opens a small box on the table, revealing 3 glowing magical accessories to the shocked party. Jinho and his crew are amazed, muttering that a treasure chest actually exists in this dungeon. Internally, Kyung is thrilled, praising his genius decision to hitch a ride with a regressor, but out loud, he politely tells them to examine the gear. The box contains 3 items: the common grade Iron Dwarf's steel bracelet, the rare grade Sacred Healing Ring, and the rare grade Magic Shield Ring. Kyung immediately hands the common grade bracelet to Deokgu, who is so deeply touched that he clenches his fist and vows to repay the favor. Kyung internally smirks, calling Deokgu a pig bastard who wears the trash item perfectly, while he secretly keeps the high-tier rare items for himself and Hyen. Kyung lets Hyen choose first, and she happily selects the Sacred Healing Ring, blushing as she imagines healing her beloved Oppa whenever he gets hurt. Kyung confidently takes the remaining Magic Shield Ring, which provides a powerful daily shield. He hands over the remaining gear to Hyun-sung, claiming that as comrades, it is only right to share the jackpot gear. Hyun-sung is incredibly moved, looking at Kyung with tears in his eyes, fully buying into his goodwill. But Kyung is far from a fool. He knows that to keep Deokgu and Hyen's ultimate loyalty, Hyun-sung has no choice but to bring him along, effectively cementing Kyung's position as the vice chairman of this entire operation. Secure in his stable position, Kyung privately warns Deokgu to remain highly alert, reminding him that Jinho's crew are likely enemies rather than true comrades. The group stacks their hands together in a circle, shouting a unified cheer to prepare for the hunt. Secretly, Kyung smirks, telling Jinho in his thoughts to look forward to receiving the hammer of justice from Hyun-sung once the stage is set. At the same time, Jinho and his sinister allies are plotting their own betrayal, whispering that they will use this dungeon raid to assassinate Hyun-sung and seize control of the shelter. The next morning, the two parties meet and descend into the dimly lit, stone-walled underground ruins. As they walk through the foggy corridors, Jinho notices Hyen clinging tightly to Kyung's cloak and smugly asks if they are a couple. Recognizing an opportunity to lower Jinho's guard and secure his grip on Hyen, Kyung plays along, causing Hyen to blush in pure ecstasy and hug him so hard that his ribs start to crack. Squeezed to death by Hyen's terrifying strength, Kyung internally curses Jinho for the awkward matchmaking. As they approach a massive, ominous stone archway filled with purple mist. But as they step inside and ascend the stone staircase, the atmosphere instantly turns heavy. A golden quest screen violently flashes in front of Kyung's eyes, initiating a mandatory, rare-rank survival quest that forces everyone to freeze in panic. Before they can even process the sudden prompt, a deafening, guttural roar echoes through the chamber. A massive, three-headed purple monster with razor-sharp teeth and slithering tongues emerges from the dark, radiating an overwhelming, suffocating pressure. Jinho's party breaks out in a cold sweat of pure shock, realization hitting them that they might be completely doomed.